Life hits fast. Crisis doesn't wait. And too many families face hardship alone. But what if one community, one movement, could guide people from crisis to stability and finally home? The Come Together Compass was created for one reason. No one should face hardship alone. Families are overwhelmed. Nonprofits are stretched thin. Businesses want to help but don't know where to start. Resources exist, but they're scattered, confusing, and hard to access. The purpose of the Come Together Compass is simple: to guide people from crisis to stability by uniting the community around them. The compass removes confusion, connects families to real help, gives businesses a meaningful way to give back, and builds a culture where compassion is the norm. At the heart of the compass is a belief. When we work together, we guide people home. Home isn't just a place, it's safety, it's support. It's knowing someone cares enough to walk with you through the storm. The North Pillar is physical needs, providing real, immediate help: food, clothing, household essentials, transportation, emergency resources. When crisis hits, people don't need a maze, they need a map. The compass gives them a clear path to support. The East Pillar is emotional needs, because hardship isn't just physical. People need connection, encouragement, and strength. The compass offers peer support, check-ins, and mental wellness resources. Help that feels human, not transactional. The South Pillar is community connection, building long-term stability. The compass links families to nonprofits, business partners, volunteers, and community events. This is how crisis becomes stability, and stability becomes empowerment. And the West Pillar is the promise of the compass, the commitment that no one will be left behind. Every family will be met with dignity. Every partner will be valued. Every act of kindness will guide someone closer to home. The compass serves families and individuals facing hardship, nonprofits who want to collaborate, businesses who want to give back, donors and volunteers who want to make a real impact. The compass matters because people are struggling silently, because resources are scattered, because good people want to help but don't know where to start, because community should mean something. This is more than a program. It is a beacon, a guide, a promise. Join the movement, support a family, partner with the compass. Help us guide people home.
It's actually kind of funny about this, Joel. I got a new Bluetooth speaker because this computer of mine now, the speaker doesn't sound right. So I got this new Bluetooth speaker. I
Right.
just took and I pressed play on our intro, and as it was coming in, I realized how loud that intro music was. So I was worried about having like a reverb or a bounce back or something.
I didn't even
So I had
hear
to.
it. Did it even start playing?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We went through. So, but hey, everybody, how's it going? Zak Clayton here with my good world traveling Egypt bunny, Mr. Joel White. How you doing, brother?
I'm all right there. Sorry about that. Complete. I didn't hear the music. My side. That I was well upset with that. I like having a little dance. I don't know what went on there. Deeply concerned not to have a little dance there. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah, as you said, in the pre-show, you kind of still trying to get caught up. Been a been a little bit of a been a little bit of a hectic start to a year. I would
yeah,
definitely go so far as that way. I think I really wonder right now with everything that's going on. We just had a well, it depends on who you talk to and what time of day you talk to them. We either just started a war or we didn't. So it really depends on what's going on. And we've got this fuel prices are just going out of freaking control right now. Here in the States, I'd imagine that's probably not the greatest thing up there. And it's one more addition to a stress level that men are feeling, that are
yep,
added on to what you feel every year, like right after Christmas, paying for those holiday bills and just trying to get caught up in work. I remember when I had a quote unquote real man's job, I hated January and February, going into March, because they're in, November and December, you had all that time off, and it was like, yeah, I have to work 3.5 weeks, but I mean, hell, look at this. I get days off now,
yeah,
now, uh, and I loved it. And then along comes January, and you're just looking for that, next national holiday. You're like going, God, when do I have a next day off?
yeah.
Did I get paid for? And it ain't showing up. So, but Joel, how was Egypt?
Egypt was great. Honestly, it was absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed it. It was interesting to say the least because I remember in our last show I went away with my ex-wife and my
Yeah,
son. Um, yeah, it was good. It was good. We had our moments, a little bit of naughtiness at each other. But overall, it achieved what it was wanted to achieve, which was creating happy memories for us all, but more so for my son. And for me, if people have been watching this, I very much are doing what I can to give the best example for my son with that. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
yeah,
Look, I'm gonna tell you something. One of the hardest things that I had to go through after my accident was when I had to tell my son that, because of the accident, because I wasn't getting, the money coming in or anything, he was unable to go to a trip to Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And he had a chance to go to Treblinka, and go to a couple of these, go to a couple of these concentration camp areas and learn about
yeah,
that part of history. And a lot of our heritage is from that area. We're our families of the Germanic area.
yeah,
And so, me telling my son, and I'm telling you right now, Joel, I'd go through this motorcycle accident every day of my life if I could have just sent my son on that trip. I would
yeah,
go through this accident every day of my life if I could have just sent him on that trip. I mean, I deal with the pain every day for the rest of my life if I would have been able to send him on that trip. And what you did with your kid, and this is also coming from a history guy. So, and Egypt is one of my favorite places to learn about. I listen to more stuff about Egypt and watch. I'm always watching the History Channel with all this Egyptian stuff and Rome and Greece and all these things. I think I spend more time in your neck of the woods just on TV than I do here in America. Um, but I mean, it's a place of marvels, and I would love to go there. I'm so envious of you, and I think it's so neat that your son got to experience this. And yeah, he probably doesn't know yet what he saw, but I think that when he gets a little bit older, he's going to have a wonderful memory of it.
for sure, and it's. I can only talk from his perspective. He's very fortunate. He's got two parents who are able to take him on some of these holidays. Do you know what I mean? And it was great that he got the best of both worlds. Me and his mum together. And I'd be lying to say it wasn't incredible. Some of the stuff to see, it was just phenomenal from that degree. And the biggest thing which got me was just the sheer size of some of the places,
Yeah.
but also the amount of people and teamwork and dedication was astronomical. And going around these places unfortunately made me think about what the world is like today. I just do
Right.
not think we have the ability or the patience or the skill to recreate those. Even with our modern technology, I don't think we could even get close to it. We really couldn't. And it kind of says a lot, really, about where we're going in general as a human race. So
You know what always freaked me out is hearing the stories about how when when King Tutankhamun was was leading the country, he could look at the Sphinx, and the Sphinx was older than we are now from year zero. Okay,
yes,
the Sphinx was already ancient in the time of Tutankhamun and Cleopatra and all those. The Sphinx was already over 2,000 years old at the time, and we look
yeah,
at this as a country, and especially with us, we're a country that's, we're celebrating our, the big 250, coming up this year, and are we heading for failure already? That's kind of it's a staggering thought when we think about it. So, you know you guys there in England had quite a great run as the as the world's power for quite a while.
yeah, we didn't
You
do
know,
too well in managing that, and neither now.
yeah,
Well, anyway, well, it is an interesting time, and looking back at things. But again, it's important to. I think what I personally feel is I think we've lost sight of the importance of culture and heritage. We've lost sight of it, um, and I think that just and again along the way, and again this is my perspective. I'm taking ownership for this. I think the nature of man has struggled to adapt to the changes around it. And these are some of the things we're talking about in the pre-show, and we've talked about in other shows. Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It really is, and hence, you know, based on some of the work that I do, I work with men who seem to have it together on the outside, but it's a different story on the inside. And what's quite fascinating, funny enough, it came up today. I went on a visit to a men's peer support organisation. They're launching a new group. And what was really interesting was listening to the guy who runs the company about his ideas of things. And it was very much in parallel to what I say, that there's a lot of men out there who wear masks. A mask to be tough, to be hard, to say certain things, do certain things. On that mask is dad, husband, father, work person, biker guy, whatever it is. But very rarely does a man feel safe and have the ability to take it off to actually, be real. And I don't know what it's like in America, but generally, what I find in the UK is there ain't a lot of things out there just for men, where men can just come into a space, sit down, and be real and talk. And again, we talked about this last month, and we're still planning to do that, to do our online men's group, where it is going to be a space. And what was quite interesting, what we talked about is, why do the men's groups work? Why do people come to them? And what he went on to say, and again, I resonated with this, and other people do that. when men get together, even if they don't know them, there's almost like an automatic level of vulnerability and trust. And if you can build into a space, creating a safe space, that has different meanings for different people. But the reason why they work is that men feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel validated. But they also feel challenged, that challenge comes back, not as a criticism or taking the piss. It comes back as an accountability, responsibility challenge. And you see men grow in that space. And the other thing which is interesting to note on, which I think we've talked about before, that services are a bit weird over here in the UK. And I'll come on to trying to explain that society has a weird way of looking at problems and crisis, and what they'll do over here. Say, for instance, an individual is struggling with alcohol, they will be recommended to go to a place which supports individuals reduce or come off alcohol. So I get that. But what's quite interesting to challenge that, surely if a person wants to come off alcohol, they would go to a group of people who are supportive who never had an issue with alcohol. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
what's interesting in the men's group was what the guy was saying is the worst thing you can do is say a men's group is for mental health, because a lot of men will disengage. What it actually is, it's about peer support. And within a men's group, what the best men's groups are is where you have say you've got 10 men, okay? So the best men's groups are the ones where in your 10 men, you've got 6 of them who are stable, who are doing well, who are progressing, okay? You might have a couple in the middle, and you might have a couple at the bottom that are in crisis. But what happens is if your top end is more well, then that's going to help the people at the bottom, people in crisis, move upwards. Because again, and this is what I was even talking about somebody about this the other day when I was delivering a wellbeing course. The services in this country, in the UK, and from our perspective, are really geared around that when you're in the shit, when you're in the crisis point, that they will come in and most of the time help you out, okay? And they'll move you along to that point of stability, and then they go, right, bye, see you later, we're off, okay? And what usually happens to these men is, where do they go? Of course they go backwards. They go back into crisis because they don't know what stability and onwards is, stability to wellness. They've never experienced it. They don't even know where to start with it. So it's no wonder they go back the other way. And I feel if this is the service that men have of generally moving from crisis to stability, how can you expect them to grow beyond that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the truth is that they're not concentrating on stability. They're gonna, they'll send you to a food bank. They'll give you food, but I mean, you can look at it the way that I guess the Bible puts it. That you can teach a man to fish and he'll eat every day. You can give a man a fish, he'll eat for one day. This is
Yeah,
really kind of the way that a men's group can be there, because a men's group can tell somebody, hey, I hear what you're saying, and you're kind of full of shit, and you're the problem with you being full of shit is you're not just full of shit to us, you are this to yourself. You're
yeah,
trying to convince yourself that you're not something that you are.
yeah.
Okay. You're trying to convince yourself that you're more than you actually are. And you need to stop, and you need to take that realistic look at yourself. And our goal isn't to sit there and lambast you and put you through the ringer. Our goal is very simple. It's to make sure that you understand, look, if you are going to take, and if your life is all about glamorizing yourself, then I'm sorry, you're going to live in a fantasy world. And living in
Absolutely.
fantasy world, hey, sounds great, sounds fun. I mean, hell, I'd love to ride my unicorn all day long. But the truth is that's not a real life. That's not a way that you can ever truly be happy with who you are if you're living something that's not you, you know?
Absolutely. And, the other thing, and we were speaking off air about this, things have been a bit ropey at the moment with certain things around me, around finances. But what I've done is, if I'm all about practicing what I preach, then the only way for me to demonstrate that is to be open and vulnerable to others, because that's really important and what I feel to do that. How can you help other people move from stability to wellness if you're not taking accountability and responsibility for yourself? And you will go up and down. That's okay. What matters is, are you heading more in the up direction than you are the down direction? And what's also really interesting, again, this might segue into some of what you were talking about before, is there is a lot of men out there. Men aren't stupid. They know they've got problems. Okay, a lot of men do. They're not stupid. You know, I'm yet to find a man who had no idea whatsoever that he was moving from wellness to illness. I'm yet to find one who's that naive. A lot of the time, men just ignore it and they hope it goes away. But also, I think what comes into it is where some of the fear of accessing services comes in. Is it ain't an easy ride to move from crisis to stability, and it's even harder to go from stability to wellness, because to move into the wellness thing, you've got to bring in all those parts of yourself: the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly bits you've locked away, and it can be hard. And it has its moments on this journey of fulfillment, or whatever phrase you want to use, is that you've got to face some not great choices. We talked about this before. I made some really poor choices, but how are
Mhm.
you going to move forwards and learn if you don't take accountability and responsibility for your actions? You're just not going to do it. And you might still find, and I still will find myself making poor choices, but what I hope is that overall I make better informed choices than I do the poor ones.
Well, and Joel, that's really one of the things that Rewired for Men, and that's really one of the things that you kind of taught me when I took the class. Okay, when I took the course, was look, we can sit here and we can think about how, in these poor choices, we can try to find in our mind what we were thinking at that time. We can sit there in our mind and come up with reasons why we did this, or we can sit there and we can concentrate on what was I doing at this point in time? Why did I make this poor choice? Why did I stop? That
Yeah,
choice it's made. There's nothing that you thinking about it. There's nothing that you can do about that choice now. There's nothing. You made it. It's done. It's done. Are you going to do it again? Hell no. Not if
yeah,
you're thinking about it 30 years later. I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping you're not that moron who's going to take and go, well, this has ruined my life for 30 years. I think I'm going to do it again. We know there are some guys, they'll never learn. But the one thing that your course really did was like, you know what? You can think about, you know, why you did this. You can think about what it led to. You can think about all this stuff, but do you really need to waste your time on it? It's over.
abs-
It's
absolutely. But
let's
also,
build.
go on.
Let's let that go,
Yeah,
and let's let that go. Let's not let that bother you right
yeah,
now. Let's lower let's lower the discomfort that you feel right now and move on, because this is not it's not you. It's not part of your life anymore. You need to move away from
absolutely,
it.
absolutely. And the other thing that come in, what I do is, the life will throw curveballs. It does to me.
Mhm.
And you know, a time this week I did feel overwhelmed by it. I'm human, but I was more able to move on from it and put solutions in place. A lot of people talk about anxiety. And anxiety is a really helpful thing, because it helps you in a way to take stock of your environment. Okay, is it safe? And the best way to deal with anxiety, although it can be difficult to do so, is make choices to move forwards. And what you will start to find is the anxiety will start to dissipate, because you're saying to the brain that I can do this, I can move out of it. And again, it's a strange way of looking at it, but it's helpful in if you depend how you deal with anxiety, to be able to move you to a better place, to move you to make better choices. That's the important thing. And I was saying before, I practice what I preach. The techniques that I went through with you and all the other men, I do myself on a regular basis. Life will throw curveballs. What matters is what do you do about it. That's the piece which matters.
Yeah, and you know, we look, we do we need to understand that there's going to be things that are going to go wrong, and you have to be free of stuff that is no longer yours to take on for you to be able to take on these other things that come up. You know, you need to be able to look at what's here and let's deal with what's here, what's now. Because something that you did, some choice that you made 30 years ago, you know, it's no longer you. It's no longer what you are. I lost you.
I'm listening to you. Go on.
Oh, okay. But yeah, the truth is that you need to be aware and you need to be able to handle what's here and now
Absolutely.
because you don't want to have to live this in 30 years from now. So let's work on what's here and now. Let's let those other choices that you have made, let's let them go. Okay?
Yeah.
Learn, take stock in what you learned, but then you got to let it go. You can't carry it around and you cannot let it continue to ruin your damn life. Life's
Absolutely.
way too short to be concentrating on poor decisions.
Absolutely. And again, it's start somewhere. Start somewhere. That's the important thing. Yeah, life isn't rosy all the time, but what matters is what are you going to do to move forwards in that. That this again comes back around to that aspect. Massively does.
Yeah, yeah. Joel, one of the things that we've got going on right now is it's National Brain Injury Awareness Month, and I brought this up to you. We all know that I deal with a brain injury. We all, that's the whole reason why we started Community Pay It Forward and trying to find ways to help people. Um, One of the things I was thinking of when I knew that you and I were going to be talking to each other is I I remember those times going, God, I don't know what the hell my head's going to do. How is this going to restrict me? How's this going to change me?
Yeah.
I remember physically and emotionally worrying about things at times. And I remember it being something that knowing that it could be something that if I wasn't who I am, I could see how emotionally and mentally it could really demolish who you are because if you are so stuck on being who you are, if you are so unable to change, you could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, what's quite interesting with this and that men. This goes back to we were talking about it before. Men wear a mask, and sometimes you believe the mask too much. That I've got to be successful, and I've got to do this job, and that blah blah and all the rest of it. And that's great if things are going peachy, but that can dramatically change if when you have an accident because most people have accidents, brain injuries that they're not the same as before the accident. That's the reality of it, or a workplace injury, or whatever it might be, and it can be a massive struggle for men who have pretended so long to be whatever they associate the mask with. So it becomes even harder for them to make that adjustment from that perspective. And like I said, that all adds into the social conditioning that we're part of. The things we pick up from a young age. I've got to be a breadwinner. I've got to do this. I've got to do that, etc., etc. And also what is really interesting, I guess, where the thought comes in, we grieve that lost part. But the irony of it is, that was never us anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the ironic aspect of it, we're grieving something that's created. Um, and that and again, what's quite interesting is that that goes along with that is the idea. Well, I'm now a failure because I'm not successful, and success equals A, B, and C, and that's not the case either. That's also social conditioning from that aspect. And you said something which is interesting. I can reflect to if if I didn't go through my mental health concern, would I have be doing the things that I'm doing now? More than likely, no, I wouldn't. I don't know what I would be doing, but I wouldn't be doing this. And when I look at where I am, yes, like I said to you before, finances could be a bit better at the moment. All this is, like you said, time of year, men don't invest, blah blah blah. Da, da, da. That will shift as we get into spring and the summer. It's just at this moment, it's a temporary state. But what matters is what do I do about it now, and how do I move through that? So, but in regards to putting that aside, I have to remember, which I do, that I already am successful. And my take on success is down into my value system. That why do I get out of bed each day? One of the reasons why I get out of bed each day is I want to make a difference to somebody
Yep.
or
Yep.
someone, whether that's a smile or a conversation or an opportunity to work together afterwards or whatever it is, And sometimes I've got to bring myself to that back to, what is my life plan? Why am I here? And for me, that is to leave the world in a better place than how I came into it. And I'm doing that through the work that I do with people, but predominantly with men. And at the back of what I do is I want a positive influence, inspire and empower people to have better lives so they can help others. It ain't just a tagline. It is what I do. And I am fortunate that I have had some men say to me, if it wasn't for you, I would have took my own life. And men don't mince those words. Do you know what I mean? They really, they really mean that. And so that only drives me on further. And again, what we were talking about off air, you know, men aren't always the easiest ones to engage around the mental health because for so long that we're carrying these masks that don't particularly help situations. But what I've learned around working with men is if you practice what you preach, that one man becomes two, two becomes three, and it rolls from there. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I take from my experiences of what I've been through, and and why I do what I do from that.
It's not just that we wear a mask, Joel. We give personality to those masks. We give
Absolutely.
personality to that other person. We not just create, that's exactly what we do is we create a character of this is the person I am right now. Okay. I don't, I'm in pain mentally, emotionally, I'm in pain right now. So I'm going to be Zach, the happy guy who's,
Yeah.
always laughing at everybody, talking about how, I'm a fat guy. Ha ha ha. Look at the fat guy eating chocolate chip cookies. We give a mask, we give a personality to those masks, and we give a life to those masks. And when we do that, we're lying to people, you know.
Yeah.
And now I just want to say something. When I'm joking about me being a fat guy, that's because I'm a fat guy and I enjoy joking about it. I eat a lot of chocolate chip cookies. You look at come in and watch one of my wife's shows. She goes through my desks and she finds all my candy, and it's astonishing. She actually finds candy I kind of forget I even have. So that sometimes is a little embarrassing. I'm like going, God, that's been in there for a while.
Love
But,
it.
I we work so hard at times to build something that we're not just so we can get away from who we are.
Yeah.
And and if that's one, that's dangerous. And
Yeah.
two, that's you living someone else's life. And you
Yeah,
can't live someone else's life. You can only live your life. You're never going to be happy if you're trying to live for someone else.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, there was a quote somewhere. Again, I can't remember it all, but it went along the lines of it's the most difficult thing in the world to be is to be yourself, which is why so many people pretend to be somebody else from that degree. But obviously, as we know, pretending to be somebody else might be easier, but it's not a great outcome, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
From that perspective, it really isn't. But at the end of the day, how else are you, how else are you gonna, from a male perspective, how do you expect men to move forwards if you're not willing to be vulnerable yourself? If you're not willing to try and take accountability and responsibility for your actions, it's just not going to happen. And we can see that in your wonderful country with the president. You know what I mean? Based on his behaviour, not taking accountability, responsibility for his actions, which is a real shame. Because if he did, or other so-called superstar celebrities, footballers, they would have a more positive, influential impact on improving just men in general, and children who become men. I'm not saying all pop stars footballers are horrible, but they could be so much more than just trying to sell merchandise. Do you know what I mean? Or YouTube followers or whatever it is. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and that's actually kind of where I wanted to go with this next is look, there's a lot of times that we sit there and you brought up the footballers there in the UK, but like we sit there and we look at some of these and especially like in the world of in which, I'm going to bring it up. It's the male soap opera. My son is one of them, but professional wrestlers,
yeah,
okay? You sit there and you hear people all the time talk about how, good God, they're still doing this. What are they in their 80s? And yeah, probably pretty damn close. But you know what? They have built this character for so long that they forget who they are because they've had to be someone else. That was their life for so long. Now they're afraid to revert and go back to who they really are, if they even know who the hell they really are. And that's the reason why a lot of these individuals get into so much trouble with substances, with abuse patterns, with all this other stuff because they don't know how to, they forgot who they were and now they've got to act out who they are. Okay?
absolutely.
And in which yeah, that's part of their job. That's what they've done, that's what they've chosen to do. But when you're in character for that long, you lose a little bit of yourself. And that's where it gets scary. You've got to learn to leave, you can't live as someone else.
Absolutely. But I think what's important to go with that is that generally that describes exactly what men are like, going back to the mass and what we're talking about. They've obviously, when the wrestlers, they're in the spotlight all the time, then they're conditioned to be a certain way. So it's no wonder they lose sight of themselves. But most men over time, if they're not careful, they go the same they go the same way as well. It just takes them a little bit longer to arrive at that same destination if they're not careful from that degree. So again, it's quite fascinating to um, to see that.
Yeah. Um, Back to what we were talking about is that, this is something that you you have an injury, you have something in your life and you start thinking about how instantly your thoughts are going to be how things are going to change. And that's nature. That's nature. That's the way that things go. But the truth is that, what, you're and there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to be able to change it. I'll just tell you right now, you're going to think that way. But what you really need to do is you really need to come at it and go, okay, What do I have to change within myself to continue to do this? Because you know what? You can continue to do anything and everything that you want to do, that you truly want to do. Look, you don't have, I mean, broken bones, broken bones, broken heads, broken whatever. You know what? If you are strong enough, if you are dedicated enough, you quite simply can continue to do this. You've just got to learn what your capabilities are now.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where this, relearning something sucks sometimes because you've perfected the way of doing it. And so having to go back and relearn something at times it sucks. And and it may not be exactly what you want it to be at first. But that's the reason why you got to keep working on this, and you got to make sure that you can turn it to what you want it to be.
Absolutely. And what's quite interesting, I was speaking to my son earlier before about the stuff, and I remember, I'm not making any excuses. I didn't really know what it was like to be a dad. I don't think many people do. And my dad, he had stuff going on, but he wasn't really there. So there was a lot of poor choices being made in the early years with my son, without going too much into it. But it was reaching that, but then it was starting to reflect upon it, going, how am I going to change? Well, the only way I'm going to change this is to be real and ask for help and read books and speak to some government agencies that we have where you to support children and blah blah blah. And I'm glad I did that because I've learned a lot. And one of the things which stuck with me was a particular book that's called "There's No Such Thing as Naughty." That kids aren't naughty. It's more about the relationship building and how you explain things to them to understand and you what you demonstrate through your behavior, what you demonstrate through your choices, whether we like it or not. Kids, and that's what I talk about in the As Rewired for Men. That 5, 7 years old, they observe a lot, they learn a lot, and they learn more through your behavior and actions than actually what you actually say. And that's where it happens. But that obviously does continue after that. But that main period is 5, 7 years old. And it then shapes a lot of what you do around that aspect. And what this book talks about, or the main line in the book has, it says, listen, parenting is not about getting it right all of the time, because that's just not possible. No one is a perfect parent. It doesn't exist.
No.
What it's about is about getting it right most of the time. That's what's important. And what I've learned to do is that if I make a poor choice, my son, or I shout at him or whatever, that I actually have that I now have the ability to reflect, going, sure, that was not a good thing to do. Go and explain it to your son. So I will sit him down and go, this is what led up to this. This is what Daddy did. Daddy shouldn't have reacted that way, and I'm sorry. And this is what I'm going to do differently. This is what I've learned from this. What have you learned from it? Right, let's move forwards. And that is definitely a better way of dealing with situation, becoming a better dad, becoming a better father, and hopefully that will then help him to grow into a better son, and then into a better father when he's older, if he chooses to have kids, obviously, in that aspect.
You know, Joel, I used to always think that I always hoped that my kids were going to use me as an example of what not to do. And the truth is that what I did is I taught my kids it's okay to do the things that I was doing. Because dad didn't go out and get arrested. Dad didn't go and do any of this other stuff, Dad, dad stayed still a good person. Dad was still, you know, well, hell, dad didn't have any, ramifications for what he did. So it's okay to go out and, drink a whole shitload of stuff. And, I can do that too. It's fine. Look, nothing happened to my dad. He turned out great. Ugh. No, no. There for a long time, there was a lot of stuff there going, "Oh, man, I wish you wouldn't have done that." I mean, that just led to problems. Once again, that's one of the things that your class, your program really got out of me is that, I did. There were times that I was thinking about, God, I cannot believe that I stayed in a relationship for over 20 years, you know, be, just and I was able to do that because I stayed drunk most of the time, quite
Yeah,
honestly. And that bothered me. That bothered me for a long time. But you and I talked about it and we worked that out. And that's not one of the things I think about anymore.
yeah,
I don't. And I'm able to actually talk. I'm able to actually have serious conversations with my sons now about that too.
yeah.
To where, look, I mean, just because I did it doesn't make it right.
No,
Just and these are some of the things that happen from that. And I mean, you need to be aware, but don't ever sit there and think that you can teach your kids by being a dumbass. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do, because what you're teaching them is, hey, he got away with that. I mean, hey, he held on to that firecracker as it popped, so can I. Oh, where's my fingers? I mean, it. Uh, we've really got to take and there's a lot of things that now that I see through sober eyes and and older eyes. I do look at a lot of the stuff that I did when I was younger, and I am so proud of my kids because they did. They did learn certain things. They do struggle with a lot of the things though that that was me. I see myself in them going
yeah.
through these things and using like alcohol as a buffer, or using it as a calming tool. And I've talked to them about it, and I've said, look, I'm never going to tell you not to do or not to drink, but just be careful. The way that you're going is dangerous, okay? Because this is
Absolutely.
what happened to me, and I don't want you to go through that hole. I don't want you to think that you can base a life off how drunk you can be. And you really got to be careful. You've really got to be careful. And if we have people stop thinking that, well, my kids are going to learn lessons from my stupidity, we're going to be better.
I hear you.
So, well, Joel, I appreciate it, my brother. I can tell that you're tired. I can tell that you got a lot of stuff going on. We
Yeah,
are
I got my
going to
little man.
be, yeah, yeah. You get there with your kid. Next month we're really going to ramp up our program. The men's network. We're really going to start building that up. We would love for you to come and join us now. Reach out to me. Reach out to Joel. You got all of his information right here on the bottom of the screen. You can get a hold of Joel by scanning that QR code there in the bottom of your screen. That is his family page. It takes you to communitypayitforward.us. It gives you a way to reach out to him. You can talk to him and say, hey, you know what? I'd like to try this. It's going to be $20 a month. And look, it's a chance for you to come in and talk to other men. Okay. We're
Absolutely.
not here. Joel, you said it best. We're not looking to be here to help you and your mental health. We're here to be a sounding board. We're here as a group of men that just need to talk every once in a while. I mean, just talk, just, be real
Absolutely.
and be real and be found.
Couldn't
So,
agree more.
but do you have anything else that you want to share with anybody?
No, like always, check out my website, www.rewiretomen.com. On that website, there's a free gift to download. It'll give you more insight into some of the things, I talk about, the unconscious beliefs, how that impacts on men, usually in 3 areas of life, which are money, work, and relationships. And just some handy ways of how to start tackling some of them more than anything else. Just just to be a better person. in regards to the things we talk about. So yeah,
Yeah.
there we are.
And look, I'm just going to tell you right now, okay, exactly what we've been talking about a little bit for today. I took the Rewired from Men program. Okay. And if you ever sit there in your day-to-day life and all of a sudden you have that memory that pops up in your head and you were like going, why did I do that? What the hell was I thinking? What is going on? Why did I do that? You know what you're doing? You're wasting your time.
Yep,
You're wasting your time and you're putting energy where it could be better spent. Take this course. Get with Joel because he helps you to figure out how to not worry about that and put that
absolutely.
where it needs to be. He helps you live your life again because you're not living your life in that moment. You're living your past.
Hmm.
If you're living your past, you can't live your life. So, for my buddy Joel, the world traveler, the Egyptologist, the guy who went to my heaven. My name is Zak Clayton. You've been watching the Rewired from Men monthly show. We're going to be back here next month. And again, we've got a couple programs that are going to be coming up. One is this men's group. If you want to reach out to us, please do.
Yep,
But until then, we will be back next month with another show. If you would like to join us, please come on and join us. If you have something to say, if you want to get out here and you hear something that we say that you're like, hey, you guys, you're full of shit. Come on, join us. We'll tell you when we're going to record. You can come on, you can give your opinion. If you're right,
love it.
you're right. If you're wrong, you're going to be told you're wrong. Quite simply.
I love it.
So,
Absolutely.
so and if we have to use colorful language, yeah, what the hell? Why not? So, but until then, Joel, have a great time. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Absolutely. Cheers. Until next
All
time.
right. And now, on with the music.
Yay!
In a world full of questions, sometimes the answers find you. This Lens Day, the veil lifts. Step into the circle, ask your question, receive your message. We will be live with Lynn, giving free tarot readings. Real insight, one magical hour. We'll also share how you can help with Miracle of the Season, our global tradition of giving, joy, and togetherness.
So please join us every third Wednesday at our new time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Lens Day.
Today, I want to shine a light on an organization doing truly beautiful work, Dignify Dementia. Their mission is simple, powerful, and deeply needed. They help families navigate the challenges of dementia with dignity, compassion, and real-world support. They understand that dementia doesn't just affect one person, it affects entire families, and they step in with resources, education, and comfort to make sure no one walks that journey alone. And in the spirit of comfort, connection, and care, Dignified Dementia has donated something incredibly special to support the Come Together Compass, a beautifully stitched fur-lined blanket. This blanket isn't just warm, it represents the comfort we all deserve. It represents the support we all need, and it represents the kindness that keeps our community strong. Every dollar donated gets your name on the wheel of giving. $1, 1 spot. $5, 5 spots. Every donation helps us continue building the Come Together Compass, a system designed to guide families, veterans, and neighbors to the help they need when they need it most. And yes, one lucky supporter is going home with this incredible blanket from Dignify Dementia. This event runs through April 1st, and every contribution brings us one step closer to making sure no one faces crisis alone. Dignify Dementia stepped up with comfort. Now we're asking you to step up with support. Together, we can build a community where compassion isn't just a word, it's an action. And the Come Together Compass makes that possible.
I grew up riding just about everything that you could possibly ride. Started when I was a kid in snowmobiles, and then ATV type things, and then a moped. My dad had a moped, and that was the first thing. And then after that, it was different motorcycles, including Honda Shadow. But then my friend died in September 11th, 1991, and he died not far from where I grew up. And that was the end of riding for me. But I still understand and love the community that motorcycle riding is a part of. And I think what's great about the motorcycle riding community is that it's really diverse. And it can be a brotherhood and a sisterhood that really we don't have in our society anymore. I've been practicing motorcycle law for 20 years now. And this last year or so, it just became more and more obvious that motorcycle riders were being discriminated against and being found at fault for accidents that were not their fault. It really came home to me this past winter when I'm sitting having breakfast with one of my sons, and I got a call from a dad who was at a funeral home setting arrangements for his son who had been killed in a motorcycle accident. And it was clearly not his son's fault, but the police had found otherwise. And that's when it became obvious that it was time to start Rider Justice, the advocacy arm of my firm, so that we could really try to help and make a difference in the community. But what Rider Justice does is a number of things. The most important thing, and I think it's probably the most unusual thing that we're going to do, is provide free assistance, legal assistance with traffic tickets for motorcycle riders, that when they get a ticket while riding on the motorcycle, we'll represent them for free in Denver, Arapahoe, and Jefferson County. And if it gets bigger, we'll do more. We are doing free assistance for traffic tickets because we have seen so many cases be decided, I think, the wrong way. The next is working with our state legislature to try to affect better laws to protect our riders out there. And that includes increasing penalties for distracted driving, trying to just make our roads safer for motorcycle riders in general. Over this past couple of years, I've worked with the state legislature, in particular, Senator Lois Court has helped increase the penalties for distracted driving with a mobile device. So other states like New York have strict penalties on having a phone in your hand. People warn you when you go to visit, do not drive with a phone in your hand. And we need to get to that point. The next would be working on community classes like accident scene management and other classes for different groups and organizations to try to get them so that, God forbid, when something does happen, they're prepared as a group or individuals on those rides to really help one another during that terrible time. And so we did this great class this past winter, where it was a 2-day class essentially, and everybody got essentially certified in basic roadside first aid, control the scene, keep it safe, how to move somebody who's been injured, and it was really awesome. I loved it, and I want to make sure we provide more of those continuing throughout the year, over the years, so we can reach as many people as possible. The next would be something we're doing more, just helping with the community rides, more fun, get people together. It really is probably one of the strongest communities in Colorado, and they just love to get together and do things, and we want to help keep that going. The work that I've already been doing for years, decades in the motorcycle community, helping with nonprofits like Biker Down or Randy Run or the Clayton Foundation, and working with other groups like Abate and other groups around the state to really try to help grow their missions. One of the things we're going to do with Rider Justice as well is give free insurance reviews for people. And what we're trying to accomplish with that is to make sure that every rider out there understands that they have to take care of themselves. They can't rely on the at-fault driver to have the right kind of insurance. They just don't. 3/4 or so of the people on Colorado roads don't have it. And the right kind of insurance is maxing out to their level that they can afford of at least $250,000 in underinsured motorist coverage, because that covers you in the event that the other side just doesn't have enough. The main reason I started Rider Justice is to be the advocacy arm of the O'Sullivan Law Firm. I am sickened by law firms or different organizations that say they're there to help, but all they really care about is just trying to get a case. And what I'm trying to do with this, and what I've been doing now for 20 years, is actually be in the community, try to make a difference, try to make the roads safer, try to fight the discrimination in a way that just the law firm alone can't. We have to be doing this as an advocacy group out there trying to make a difference. And it is just so important in our community at this point.
Hello world, my name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer, and I am also a consultant at Z World Webs. My one goal is to develop custom websites that are specifically catered to your organization's needs. I completely understand that building a website is an exhilarating, exciting, and significant step in connecting with your audience. Your organization has the potential to make a meaningful impact, whether it's supporting animal rights, advocating for equality, combating human trafficking, or honoring the brave individuals who have served our country. Your mission is too important to be held back by the challenges a website can present. And I am here to ensure that your website works for you, not against you. Whether it's maintaining, developing, or redeveloping a custom website that is specifically catered to your needs. And with that being said, I would be more than delighted to learn more about your organization and, of course, develop a website Z World is waiting for. Thank you.
Today, I want to shine a light on an organization doing truly beautiful work, Dignify Dementia. Their mission is simple, powerful, and deeply needed. They help families navigate the challenges of dementia with dignity, compassion, and real-world support. They understand that dementia doesn't just affect one person, it affects entire families, and they step in with resources, education, and comfort to make sure no one walks that journey alone. And in the spirit of comfort, connection, and care, Dignified Dementia has donated something incredibly special to support the Come Together Compass, a beautifully stitched, fur-lined blanket. This blanket isn't just warm, it represents the comfort we all deserve. It represents the support we all need, and it represents the kindness that keeps our community strong. Every dollar donated gets your name on the wheel of giving. $1, 1 spot. $5, 5 spots. Every donation helps us continue building the Come Together Compass, a system designed to guide families, veterans, and neighbors to the help they need when they need it most. And yes, one lucky supporter is going home with this incredible blanket from Dignified Dementia. This event runs through April 1st, and every contribution brings us one step closer to making sure no one faces crisis alone. Dignified Dementia stepped up with comfort. Now we're asking you to step up with support. Together, we can build a community where compassion isn't just a word, it's an action. And the Come Together Compass makes that possible.
In a world full of questions, sometimes the answers find you. This Wednesday, the veil lifts. Step into the circle, ask your question, receive your message. We will be live with Lynn, giving free tarot readings. Real insight, one magical hour.
So please join us every third Wednesday at our new time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Lynn's Day.